So the next common condition that we'll be discussing is Vogt-Koyanagi-Harada syndrome, a very exotic sounding name. And most of my residents ask me, ma'am, ye to India mein nahi hoti hai. I don't think we see this. But most of you will be surprised to know it's a very, very extremely common conditions. And when you know about it, then only you'll be diagnosing more of it. Most times it's missed because you don't know what you're looking at. So VKH is another very, very common entity. Of course, more common in the Japanese population, more common in the Orientals. But in the Indian subcontinent, it does have a little atypical presentation, so that's why we're not able to catch it most times. So the Vogt-Koyanagi-Harada syndrome, also called the uveo-meningitic syndrome, is a disease where the patient presents with bilateral pan-uveitis. And this may be associated with cutaneous, neurologic, and auditory findings. So the key word here is a bilateral pan-uveitis. Any patient who comes to you with a bilateral anterior uveitis, posterior uveitis together, you have to keep the diagnosis of VKH top on your. After tuberculosis, VKH should be your diagnosis. So, as I said, one of the most common causes of pan-uveitis in our country, tuberculosis being the other one. So Vogt-Koyanagi-Harada was initially described as a syndrome of bilateral anterior uveitis. This was the Vogt-Koyanagi part associated with alopecia, vitiligo, and dysaceusis. The patient complains of tinnitus. And the Harada component is bilateral exudative detachments. And when you check the CSF, there is CSF pleocytosis, that is increased number of cells in the CSF. So now this was a consolidated, both these were clubbed together and called the VKH syndrome. So as I said, it occurs most commonly in pigmented individuals like Asians, Hispanics, Native Americans, and it is rare in whites, but also rare in Africans, which is surprising. But in our subcontinent and in the Orientals, it's very common. There is a genetic predisposition to it. Women are affected slightly more, and it is most common in the 3rd to 5th decade of life. But there have been cases reported where kids have also been affected with this condition. So VKH represents a T-cell mediated autoimmune disorder against melanocytes. These melanocytes are found in the eye, in the skin, hair, inner ear. So that is why you get that kind of presentation where all these systems are affected. The trigger is a viral. No one really knows what it is. So there is a non-necrotizing granulomatous infiltration of the uvea, sparing the chorocapillaries. So you get all these giant cells, lymphocytes, epithelioid cells. Giant cells containing melanin pigments. And the most pathognomic of this is the Dallen-Fuchs nodules that we all have heard of. And the melanocytes gradually start to disappear from the choroid. So Dallen-Fuchs nodules is nothing but a collection of lymphocytes, epithelioid cells, pigment-laden macrophages, and RPE cells which have been altered. So Vogt-Koyanagi-Harada syndrome, it typically presents with these 4 phases: the prodromal phase, acute uveitic phase, the convalescent phase, and the chronic or the recurrent phase. Quite a few of these patients land up with the neurologist. They go to the neurologist with a history of headache. The presentation here in our country is the patient comes with headache or a neck pain, pain behind in the occipital area radiating to the neck. That is signs of meningismus. And may have mild fever, a stiff neck. Cranial nerve palsies, optic neuritis may sometimes be present. So they go to the neurologist. The neurologist thinks of maybe a raised ICT, gets a CSF examination done, and CSF shows pleocytosis. So this can sometimes clinch the diagnosis. And when the patient doesn't really respond to the neurological treatment, they refer him to the eye specialist, and that's when you see the pan-uveitis and you diagnose VKH. So a lot of patients have been referred to me by neurologists for recalcitrant headaches. So the acute uveitis phase, the patient also complains of blurred vision, photophobia, and pain, which are all signs of uveitis. And both the eyes are generally involved simultaneously. There may be a lag of 1 to 3 days between the 2 eyes, but generally the patient comes with both eyes involved. And you see these mutton fat KPs, though not absolute. You may see sometimes a non-granulomatous reaction also. There may be nodules on the iris surface. And the important point to note is a multifocal exudative retinal detachment. When you see the fundus, you see these lesions looking like CSR. You see those neurosensory detachments, but these pockets are all over the retina. There are multiple pockets like this all over the retina. And you have to look carefully. You have to spend some time and look, and then only you'll start seeing them. And there may be also yellow-white lesions at the level of the retinal pigment epithelium beneath this serous detachment, these yellow-white lesions. And the optic nerve may also be swollen or hyperemic. Just skip this. So as this phase recovers, once you start the treatment, the next phase is the convalescent phase. So in this, what happens is there's depigmentation of the choroid due to loss of the melanocyte. And you've heard of the sunset glow fundus. This is because the melanocytes start going out from the RPE. So the fundus becomes depigmented. And this is the time when the patient develops vitiligo of the face, hands, shoulders, etc. And alopecia and poliosis may also occur. So at this stage, I'd like to say that in our Indian scenario, these features are not really seen in all the patients. The typical signs of vitiligo and skin signs, hair loss is generally not seen in the Indian population. The Indian population generally presents with, like I said, headache, tinnitus, and uveitis. So don't look for these signs. Very often you'll not find them. This is the vitiligo that I was mentioning, and this is the typical sunset glow fundus. So this disease is a recurrent disease. So the patient may be, studies have reported that recurrence rate of 43% within the first 3 months and 52% within the first 6 months. So the patient is treated with steroids. You see a choroiditis, you treat with steroids. While you're tapering the steroids, the patient again gets a recurrence. So this disease is known to be a recurrent disease. And this is the stage when the multiple recurrences occur. This is the stage when complications set in, like glaucoma, cataract, choroidal neovascularization, subretinal fibrosis, like you see here. So the important point to remember is that we should not allow the patient to go into this recurrent stage again and again. You treat the patient once and for all, and I'll be talking about the treatment a bit later. So the diagnostic criteria for this are the patient should not have any history of penetrating ocular trauma, because sympathetic ophthalmitis is a condition which exactly mimics VKH syndrome. All the features are similar, except that the patient will give a history of penetrating trauma in one eye. In sympathetic ophthalmitis, in VKH, this history will be negative. And there should be no clinical or lab evidence of any other ocular disease, and a bilateral ocular involvement. So, and all these are the different signs. Neurological or auditory findings, these may be resolved at the time of evaluation. Meningismus is, like I already mentioned, tinnitus, and cerebrospinal fluid pleocytosis. Integumentary findings, the skin signs, they come in later. So these are also part of the diagnostic criteria. So it has been classified into complete VKH, incomplete VKH, and probable VKH. So most times the ones that we see, we may not see the complete VKH. Most times we may see incomplete VKH. The lab investigations, diagnosis, like I said, is again made by clinical examination. So you do a fluorescein angiography, ultrasound, OCT, and a lumbar puncture helps you in this. So this is a typical case of VKH. You see these, when you do an angiography, you see these multiple white discrete dots here all over, which become hyperfluorescent, more hyperfluorescent in the late phases. This is the starry sky pattern. So this is a very, very typical feature of VKH. And these start to leak in the late phase, and you see this, the dye starts pooling in the areas of the serous detachments. So this is called the starry sky pattern. This is the typical angiographic feature. Here you see the serous detachment here, and you see the dye pooled in here. So once you see this kind of a picture, your diagnosis with a patient with panuveitis, with this kind of a fundus angiographic picture, your diagnosis is more or less clinched. And the OCT picture, again, this is a very, very typical picture of VKH. Whenever you may suspect that the patient has CSR, you put him on the OCT, and this is these kind of bumps that you see here. Multilobular serous macular detachments. And there's this, like in unlike a CSR, there is this subretinal hyperreflective material within the subretinal fluid. And this is most likely fibrin. So these kind of bumps, you'll see multiple bumps like this on the OCT. So this is a picture you should remember. Once you see this kind of an OCT picture with all the other clinical findings, your diagnosis is more or less clinched. And nowadays we have enhanced depth imaging OCTs, which also give you the choroidal thickness. So if you measure the choroidal thickness is increased in these patients. And this choroidal thickness is a useful guide to monitoring treatment. As you treat the patient, the choroidal thickness will go on decreasing. So the newer OCTs can also give you this added information. So that was the patient I showed you, a thickened choroid. And once the treatment starts, the choroid becomes thin after treatment. So you can watch out for all these features on OCT. The ultrasound shows diffuse low to medium thickening of the choroid and overlying exudative detachment. The differential diagnosis, like I said, is a sympathetic ophthalmitis, which will be associated with a history of trauma. A posterior scleritis is again a very, very important thing that it can be confused with, but this will always be a unilateral condition. The picture may be same, a serous detachment at the retina, but it will be a unilateral condition, and when you do an ultrasound, you'll get the typical T sign where you'll see fluid behind the sclera. So that is the sign of posterior scleritis. And another important thing is pregnancy-related hypertension. This may also present with multiple serous detachments. I've seen at least 4 or 5 cases like this, multiple serous detachments in a pregnant lady, but this case will not have vitritis. So then no panuveitis, just multiple serous detachments. So it's very easy to differentiate all these conditions. Therapy in VKH should be prompt and extremely aggressive. This is one condition where you have to be very, very aggressive with the treatment. Systemic steroids are the mainstay of treatment. You have to start with high-dose steroid therapy. You can start with IV methylprednisolone, or you can start with 2 milligram per kg body weight of steroids. I generally start in a young, healthy individual. I would start with 80 mg Visalone, and then taper it down. And the tapering has to be very, very gradual. These cases go into recurrences if you taper it very fast. So the steroids have to be continued for at least 6 months, and a very, very slow monthly tapering. You do not taper the steroids very fast, otherwise the patient will have recurrence. So tapering over 6 months. And once the patient gets recurrences, he may become unresponsive to steroids. So there are 2 schools of thoughts. There are some people who like to start with immunosuppressives in the first episode itself. When you diagnose a case of VKH, you start with immunosuppressives. But the other school believes that the first episode you can just treat with steroids. If a patient gets a recurrence, then you add immunosuppressives. So patients treated in the first go itself with immunosuppressives combined with steroids have a better visual outcome than those receiving just steroids. So this is a case of VKH. The young female patient came to me with bilateral panuveitis, again multiple serous detachments. This is the classic OCT pictures that I showed you, lumpy, bumpy kind of appearance on the OCT. Angiography, early hypofluorescence, late hyperfluorescence, and pooling into those subretinal spaces. After a week of steroid therapy, she was started on 80 mg Visalone. After a week, you see these serous detachments have decreased. After 2 months, the retina is back to its position. Those lesions have altogether disappeared. Patient recovered 6/6 vision. But the patient tapered the steroids too fast. She was not compliant with the treatment and had a recurrence after 5 months. You see again this little fluid coming up on the OCT, some lesions here. Again, she was started on steroids. She refused to go in for immunosuppressives as she wanted to have a baby. She had a second recurrence. And this is the time when we started her on immunosuppressives. And now it's been 2 years. You have to continue the immunosuppressives for at least 1-2 years. So now she's on immunosuppressives, well-controlled, vision is 6/6. There's been no scarring, nothing. So long-term treatment with very gradual taper is required. For maintaining remission and for avoiding recurrences, and you can add the immunosuppressives once after you've started the steroids. Thank you.